Hey, in case it's not obvious, I lost my voice. I'm kinda dying. It's okay. I just wanted to let you know that this story already got a development and it's not the best one. But this video was already edited and I really don't have the energy to actually put the update in this. So just know that there will be a to be continued. Also, everything I'm gonna say in this video will age like a totally fine wine.
Over the many years of witnessing changes happening to League of Legends, I learned that no matter what's happening, people won't like it. Someone got buffed, now the opponents are mad. Someone got nerfed, now the mains are mad. And sometimes people just laugh at how broken the game actually is. But besides those, sometimes we also get changes that deal with serious concerns. These usually divide the community in half. And in these special cases, if there is one thing the devs must never do, it is to try to justify it. And since we've all gathered here today, it should be obvious that's exactly what happened last week. And it all originated from the patch 13.22 patch notes. This patch was mainly focused on buffing pretty much all the mages, dealing with Seraphine, who's been on a bit of a balancing rollercoaster. There was even a vision change, where attacking from a bush now reveals a smaller area around you. But the culprit of the brand new kind of drama comes from the ping changes. But before we get to that one, first we need to set the stage. You see, for the past few months, League of Legends has not been in the best spot. Now, I have personally not touched League in a while. I am mostly a casual arena enjoyer and a TFT player. But while I don't know exactly what's happening behind every single change, I still hover around the community so I get the overall feel. And throughout the last few changes, people felt like with every good step Riot takes, they also take 3 steps back. Be it through adjusting the meta, dealing with items, maybe even monetization, or sometimes even new champion designs. This resulted in everyone being skeptical all the time. Which means that people are at the point where even if Riot releases something good, it is far too easy to twist it into something bad. Because every pro also has a con. And one of these double-sided changes arrived 2 months ago, in patch 13.19. Here we got a change where you could no longer ping anything from the scoreboard. The point being that in the vast majority of cases, people use these pings to harass their teammates. They ping their items to point out their builds, they ping their ultimate to call them out for not using it, or even just pinging someone's smite. Now, of course, sometimes people also pinged summoner spells to keep track of their cooldowns. Which is why you are still actually able to ping all the stuff from the scoreboard, but the change is that only you can see those pings. These would be hidden from everyone else. Now, of course, such a change did not go down as the most beloved. Even though people didn't use this feature as was intended, people still wanted to have the option for this kind of communication. But because this feature was used 70% for harassment and 30% for actually helping your team, I'm making those numbers up by the way, Riot took it down to give the game a net positive, which Riot later confirmed actually worked. And here we have to mention a very important thing. Throughout all of gaming, League of Legends is still holding the reputation for being the most toxic video game. Sure, maybe there are others who can compete with it, but League is certainly known for it. Which is why Riot is constantly trying to fight it. In the past, one way to combat this was to remove all chat from ranked games, and then later all games. Which they then reverted, and then they reverted the reversion, and now I honestly don't know if all chat still exists. I'm the kind of guy who doesn't play with chat at all because League is so ridiculously toxic. And honestly, that was the best decision I have ever made. If my team wants me to do something, they can just ping. Okay, not as well as before though. Outside of that, I'm just gonna do my own thing. This is why I can't really play Valorant, because that game is all about communication. And speaking of pings, another big change that arrived that also added on top of all of this were all the new pings that were supposed to enhance the already existing ping system. for the most part, all of these changes worked. But then they also added the bait ping. Yeah, guess how people use that one? I've seen a writer mention that only 20% of the time this one was used was supposed to actually help the team. The remaining 80% was actually just bullying other players. Which is why it is kinda understandable why Riot removed it. But then the final piece of this puzzle comes from Reddit. A few months ago, you might remember a post where a crazy Redditor went a little bit ham on Riot. And specifically, they called out Phreak for balancing the game wrong. Which is something incredibly scummy to do. And good job Reddit mods for actually removing a personal attack. See, you can criticize Riot however you want. But the moment you pick out an individual who is just working a job, that's when you become the asshole. Doesn't matter if they are right or wrong, those are the rules. And of course, as a result of that post, Meddler and Brightmoon came out, and they actually defended their employees as the Chad leaders they are. The point of this is, though, some people started bringing up a lot of jokes and sarcasm, which they aimed at the way Phreak was pushing out all the balancing. Which brings us to the events of last week. Specifically, back to the patch notes. The ping changes were very simple. To further reduce the toxic use of them while also keeping the positive side, the first change was, within 10 seconds of getting an epic objective takedown, all allied pings directed at your champion are visible to your team. This is simply to keep all the hype pings in the game, I guess. Also, there were some fixes to the ping lockout so that the timeout wouldn't be as brutal. But also, the alert and enemy missing pings can only be used 3 times before being rate limited. So yes, you can use these the intended way, but they will time out if you keep spamming them. So overall, these changes seemed kinda fine. And in fact, according to Riot statistics, they brought in a lot of positivity to a game that is known for being toxic, just to remind you. Which is why the reasoning in the patch notes says, overall, we're continuing to evaluate the ping changes and currently consider them successful in reaching our original goals. Again, this means that despite what the community thinks, these changes are actually something positive for the game. We've seen measurable improvements in players feeling respected and safe in the game after shipping these and the ranked restrictions. We're still working on hitting a balance between available constructive communication options and protecting the experience from destructive comms. By the way, this also means that none of these decisions are final. They are still altering everything, but overall they are still in the net positive territory, which is where the drama started. Because as you may know, Phreak often comes out on the internet and he breaks down the patch notes. This is honestly an amazing way to communicate with the community, because he's essentially telling everyone why they are changing what they are changing. Also, here it is important to mention that Phreak is explaining the ideas of the entire balancing team, not just his own, which is something people may not realize. And as a result, they think that Phreak is doing everything. Anyway, during the latest breakdown of the patch notes, he also talked about the ping changes. Specifically how you can't ping abilities anymore. To which, this is what he said.
Hey, we ask players every single patch, how do communication tools feel? As like, 1 through 5. How did communication feel in your last game, basically? And it's just like, always a 2.1. And suddenly becomes a 2.7. It's like, well, these are not the real numbers, by the way, but it's just like, we didn't change the survey. We didn't change the methodology. We didn't change anything except that the Little War game is different, and it does this, and it goes here. Guess what? The perception of communication has been better. So guess what? Seems to be positive for our players. Seems to be positive for our players at large. Great. You can type Karthus ult if you need to, by the way. It's not hard. You can type if you want. Anyway.
And this is where the fire started. This is where the memes began. Because although the reasoning Phreak and the entire team has is right, and they are implementing changes that are overall good for the entire game, and they have the stats to prove it, this was not the right thing to say. Because now people had a meme weapon. The most destructive of them all. Apparently, instead of pressing a button to let Karthus know to ult, it would be better to type out what you wanna say in a game with Twitch reactions. And so people made compilations about writing letters to your teammates to let them know the plan. Because simply pinging them was no longer an option. And just like that, just type out Karthus ult became a brand new meme weapon in Riot's arsenal. Just like 200 years of experience. Or that their kits are not overloaded. But this is not where the entire drama stopped. Because after Dums was the first one to post that awesome meme, Riot Games actually replied. Yeah, usually I make fake tweets for the thumbnails. No, this one was real. And they replied to a joke with a joke. And oh boy, did the fire get even bigger here. Because yes, this was an absolutely obvious joke. And even Dums understood that there was simply a person in charge of Riot's account who just wanted to make the situation lighter. But others didn't pick it up as a joke. And they thought that Riot Games were the most insensitive devs who never listen to their community. Is this true? I don't know, again, the stats kinda show that things are getting more positive now. But if you wanna burn a dev with a joke, the devs should be allowed to burn you back. At least it shows that they are self-aware. Also, you may not realize it, but it only shows that Riot is aware of all the feedback. Otherwise, they wouldn't even post this. But yeah, that's the entire stupid pinging drama explained. Honestly, I don't think it is as bad as people thought it would be. Yes, to many, Riot may seem a bit insensitive, which I totally understand. But on the other side, those who took it with a bit of humor have witnessed some memes which are absolutely priceless. And with all the communication happening, or not happening anymore, I am pretty sure there is more to come.